How's it going, everybody? So I'm just sipping on my delicious morning tonic herb coffee. Includes the Polyrhacus black ant extract from Hyperion Herbs, which is back in stock, everybody, as well as Panax ginseng leaf extract from Nootropics Depot, 40% ginsenosides, amazing stuff, and a really high dose of ginkgo biloba, as well as rhodiola rosea, both the 3% rosavins and 3% celebroside extract, actually, and a couple of other things. That's what I'm sipping on right now. And I wanted to talk to y'all during my morning coffee reflections and contemplations about the inaccuracy and misinformation and sort of myth of the recommended daily intake of different micronutrients and our so-called essential nutrient needs. So first of all, highly recommend everybody go ahead and read the book Vitamania by Catherine Price. It will tell you everything you need to know about the history of vitamin deficiencies, government guideline development of minimum daily intake of nutrients. It talks about the discovery of isolating vitamins and minerals and nutrient deficiencies and where they came from, as well as how the food industry and the pharmaceutical industry started to actually try to capitalize on profiting from vitamin and mineral supplementation or fortification into their foods. And if you're wondering why Pop-Tarts and cereals now, like sugar-coated cereals like Lucky Charms or Fruit Loops or whatever, can be labeled as a good source of vitamins and minerals and nutrition, it all comes from the origin of the discovery of nutrient deficiencies. And then these companies, these corporations started to capitalize on it and market their junk foods as health foods by emphasizing the isolated vitamins and minerals that they add to the foods. And there's actually no scientific proof or evidence that taking a wide array of just like a multivitamin or 15 different vitamins and minerals in your cereal or whatever, there's no proof that that actually improves health outcomes. And in fact, most of the evidence suggests isolated vitamins and minerals beyond your actual needs in real food can actually increase your risk of cancer as well as all-cause mortality. And that's also the case with antioxidant and polyphenol supplementation as well. So be careful when you hear these biohacker people or anyone like in the health industry who's trying to tell you antioxidants are just good or polyphenols are just good or you need to take a B vitamin complex and a multivitamin and this and that as an insurance policy, because it could potentially be problematic. And so anyway, as you'll understand in this video, you'll realize if you're not actually experiencing a deficiency syndrome of any vitamin or mineral diagnosed by a medical professional, then any kind of fortification or isolated vitamin on top of a real food diet is unnecessary anyway. So let's get into this. Okay, so first of all, deficiency diseases where this all started. And one good example of this is beriberi, also known as vitamin B1 or thiamine deficiency. Started to break out in a population of Japanese sailors. I don't remember the specifics of the story. You can read about it in Vitamania by Catherine Price. I read that book in like 2017 or whatever. And I don't really verify my research before making these videos. This is all from my memory, so whatever. But basically, a group of sailors and Japanese sailors, they were rewarded or awarded white rice, refined, polished white rice, in exchange for their military services as payment, okay, to fight in a war or something, right? And at the time, white rice was actually seen as royalty and rich, whereas brown rice was actually seen as peasant food, which is crazy because brown rice actually was higher in nutrition and whatnot. So anyway, the populations of people at the time who were eating brown rice had no deficiency of anything at all. Even though the carnivore people in our modern times will tell you that brown rice is full of anti-nutrients and stuff like that, and it's going to cause deficiencies because of the anti-nutrients. The fact is, there were no vitamin deficiencies or mineral deficiencies in these populations eating brown rice at the time until they switched over to the refined white rice. And this is the beginning of refining. We didn't, these days we actually fortify our white rice with B vitamins and iron, and this is actually why. So basically, the Japanese sailors who started eating mostly the white rice or whatever as a award, and they were all happy about it because they thought that, oh my God, like I'm eating like a king now, right? I'm eating the refined white rice. They started to drop dead in the numbers of hundreds, and this kept happening for years. Actually, these people were dying, and no one knew why these sailors who were eating the white rice were dying. They didn't even correlate it to the white rice. They thought it was some kind of infectious disease of some kind that was spreading, right, like a plague. But the scientists and doctors were noticing that it was only the sailors who were eating the white rice that were actually dying, okay, of this disease. And you have wet beriberi and dry beriberi, okay, and there's different symptomology that's associated with both types. And so anyway, eventually there was a doctor who was convinced that it was the white rice and there was a nutrient that was lacking in the white rice. And originally they thought that it was protein. And when they supplemented the white rice, the people eating white rice, the sailors who were eating white rice, with I think it was like beans or something, they actually did notice an improvement in their symptoms. The problem is, they were assuming it was the protein from the beans that was helping. But the reality is it was vitamin B1 that's actually found in the beans that was stripped away from the refining process of the rice. And so they tried out isolated protein supplements and whatnot and found that these sailors started dying again. And so eventually, this scientist who discovered it was beriberi, he had actually isolated. He's one of the first people to isolate a vitamin or a mineral or nutrient from a plant or from a food. And he had isolated the thiamine, vitamin B1, that's now added to all the rice, actually, now. And he was looked at as a quack by all of his peers. He was looked at as a person who was denying the infectious disease that they thought was killing off people. Eventually, this scientist had actually died. He passed away. And that was when he started to get the credit that was due. And people were, the doctors and scientists started to supplement these sailors' diets that were eating the white rice with the vitamin B1 or the beriberi. And lo and behold, the outbreak of disease, of deficiency disease, no longer happened anymore. And they're able to cure these people and prevent them from getting that beriberi. So, what this shows is first of all, brown rice is not going to kill you like a lot of these paleo people will tell you because of the anti-nutrition. The second thing is, or it's not going to develop deficiency diseases. The second thing is, you don't need an extreme protocol to prevent deficiency. When these people eating white rice were supplemented with beans, it actually completely resolved the B1 deficiency syndrome. And the other thing that it shows is when you refine a food, it by itself can cause deficiencies. But people who are eating the whole food equivalent don't develop that issue. So let's get it. So this is very, very important, okay? The refining of foods leads to deficiency diseases, and just eating the whole food equivalent can prevent that deficiency. So now we have modern times, right? So, I mean, obviously since then, cereal companies, soda companies, energy drink companies, everyone's trying to market, like there's even vitamins added to like margarines now. All these junk food companies are trying to profit off of the idea of essential vitamins and minerals. Most of the recommended daily intake recommended by the government is not founded by any actual research showing all humans need this much of these vitamins and minerals. In fact, there's no research showing that all humans need every single vitamin or mineral listed by the government. For example, and this is a very nuanced topic, okay? But first of all, there's no research backing the RDIs. Some of them, sure. Like there's folate deficiency can potentially cause tube defects in birthing mothers, for example. But the problem is they supplement with folic acid, and folic acid can cause some issues with the actual metabolism of folate. And there's certain genes that the MTHFR gene that can actually prevent the metabolism of regular supplemental folate and cyanobolin, which is vitamin B12 supplementation. So, and they'd be better off eating liver, more likely. So anyway, none of these vitamin and mineral issues became a problem until, the 1900s or whatever, when the refined food craze started to really take into play. We didn't have an epidemic of obesity, heart disease, diabetes, cancer. Even though these diseases did exist, they existed in very small numbers. And I know that testing also got better, and that plays a role, but we also didn't have these extreme deficiency diseases back then. So now we have this thing where the government's telling us we need a minimum intake of vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin A, all these B vitamins and all this other stuff. And they're basically implying that if you do not get all of the daily minimum intake of potassium and magnesium and all these things, that you're going to have a substantially increased risk of dying. Well, that's not what they're saying, but they're implying that to be healthy, you have to eat all of these nutrients on the RDI. Now, I'll tell you this, as somebody who's been who was tracking their food from 2012 all the way until 2019, okay? I've been in this nutrition space for over 10 years, and I was tracking my food diligently using Chronometer. Back in the day, I didn't use Chronometer. They didn't have it back then. But I've been tracking micronutrients for a long time. I'll tell you, when I was trying to hit all my micronutrient needs, it was damn near impossible to get those micronutrients in overall. And in order to do that, I was spending $25 a day at the grocery store on whole foods I cooked myself to even scratch the surface and try to get there. Fortified foods, the fortification of foods, okay, plays a major role in most human beings getting adequate nutrition, preventing deficiency diseases, okay? The majority of average humans in our modern society are eating mostly refined foods. And these refined foods are mandatorily fortified with vitamin B1, thiamine to prevent beriberi, iron to prevent anemia, and all of these other vitamins and minerals that we have found. These refined foods directly contribute to deficiency diseases. The government now mandates these foods to be fortified. So most people are eating white bread fortified with these minerals and vitamins, white pasta, sugar, and sugar is not even fortified. Okay. What else? Cereals and all this stuff, right? And flour and white rice is all fortified now, because if it wasn't, y'all would develop deficiency diseases just like those sailors, okay? Now the thing is, so most of the evidence we have on the essential vitamins, right? They come from deficiency disease studies. So for example, a lot of people think that they need to supplement with omega-3 fish oil to be healthy. And that's why supplementing fish oil gives you all these benefits. The fact is, fish oil acts more like a pharmaceutical, not a supplement. It's not an essential thing per se. But the studies on omega-3, for example, they were done on feeding tube studies. People in hospitals, they were being fed a refined, isolated meal replacement supplement that was literally fed through a tube and directly into their stomach. or into their intestine because they couldn't digest properly. They were going through like stomach surgery or whatever. And they found when they fed them exclusively, what was it? Was it soybean oil? I think it was, yeah. They fed them exclusively soybean oil as their fat source, and then like whey protein isolate and soy protein and then isolated vitamins and minerals. What they found is they developed all of the symptoms that are associated with omega-3 deficiency, which is like, inflammatory pain and extreme swelling and stuff like that. Now, the thing is, when they switched over from like soybean oil to, I think it was canola oil or something, that it has a higher amount of omega-3 to omega-6, what happened is now these people suddenly, those symptoms of omega-3 deficiency, or that they correlate with omega-3 deficiency, completely resolved just by switching the oils. And now they use that as evidence that you need a certain amount of omega-3 in your diet, or essential fatty acids. That's where the idea of essential fatty acids kind of came out of it. This is not the only study and only evidence, but it's a primary source of evidence. So there's a lot of other kind of forms of evidence that are used, but the majority of them are very weak, okay? So that's the big overarching kind of theme you need to understand, is that outside of refined foods and deficiency disorders, there is no evidence that you need a specific amount of beta-carotene, vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin C, vitamin B1, B2, B3, B4. None of these like numbers that you see on the food labels, on Chronometer, or any of this, or that your favorite health guru tells you need, okay? As far as just to be healthy, whether it's from your diet or supplements, none of that has any real causal evidence, like no solid proof or good, strong evidence. Whether you get those vitamins and minerals in your diet or not are unlikely to provide a major benefit in your health or anything. And a lot of these foods that people eat to try to get those nutrients, for one, are very low bioavailability anyway. And number two, a lot of people tend to have intolerances to them. And number three, they're expensive as fuck. Leafy greens and all this other crap. For me, and this is a turning point here. When I used to think I needed oatmeal and all this other crap to get my vitamins, minerals, but I found that most of these foods I was using to hit those micronutrient needs was actually contributing to my irritable bowel syndrome and psoriasis and stuff. And when I removed them, I was scared of having a deficiency, only to find that I was actually healthier than I've ever been. So here's the thing. Now we have thousands of people, okay, actually hundreds of thousands of people who are eating meat-based diets. Now just hear me out here, even if you're not a carnivore person. I'm not being dogmatic, but listen. There are documented cases of so many societies and hospital studies with 2 doctors or scientists over the course of 2 years, actually, where they ate nothing but meat, and they actually had 0 deficiency symptoms at all, especially scurvy. Scurvy, vitamin C deficiency, doesn't happen when people eat only meat. If it did, I'd be dead. Scurvy is a syndrome of vitamin C deficiency where basically your body rapidly depletes itself of collagen and other things that are created partly from vitamin C or ascorbate. And you develop bleeding gums, and you develop extremely bad ulcers in the skin and all sorts of crazy things. And basically, within a matter of weeks to months, like 3 months tops, people will die if they actually develop this ascorbate deficiency. Now, the thing is, all of these people on carnivore diets don't get vitamin C deficiency. And everyone just turns a blind eye to this, and they think it's placebo, or they say these people are lying, and they're actually eating fruit under the rug. But the fact is, and for me, the only reason why I mention this is to display the example that the recommended daily intake of nutrients is absolute nonsense. Because if you actually needed to get your RDAs, right, even to prevent certain deficiencies, if it was that cut and dry, then these carnivore people would be dying. So now we have to ask, and they also are in their diet extremely deficient in vitamin B1, most of them, because they only eat beef mostly. And deficiency, the thing is, it depends on what we're talking about deficiency. If we are labeling someone as deficient based on comparing how much nutrients they get in their diet to what the government, the RDI, recommended daily intake by these nutrition authorities, tells you need, it's very easy to say everyone's deficient who's not eating fortified foods, because fortified foods are the only things that can help you easily obtain those RDIs in the first place. But these people don't die of vitamin B1 deficiency, beriberi, when they only eat beef, even though they're only getting like 10 to 15% of the RDI of vitamin B1. They don't get beriberi. Or vitamin C. According to the government's analysis of the vitamin C content of meat, these people aren't getting any vitamin C at all. But we now know that meat, specifically uric acid and other things inside of meat, well, uric acid is not actually from meat, purines are, but there are things inside of meat that actually contribute to ascorbate. And ascorbate is more so what we need from vitamin C containing foods. It's not the vitamin C itself. And so that is just one flaw in the recommended daily intake, is the lack of understanding of vitamin C from plant foods and then other nutrients from things like meat that can potentially take its place to kind of like prevent deficiency. We think we need to consume fruits and vegetables and vitamin C from plants and things in order to prevent deficiency. That's not the case. Now, the other thing is something like vitamin A. There's retinol, which is the active form from animals, and then there's beta-carotene, which is supposedly converted into the active form of vitamin A at like 10% rate. Beta-carotene is not the same thing as vitamin A, but when you pay attention to the government's recommendations, it's treated the same way. We also have vitamin K2 and vitamin K1, and government recommendations don't even account for vitamin K2. And the fact that they play two different roles in the body and aren't the same molecule at all. Another thing, and this is a major factor here, is different people's diets actually require different micronutrient needs. And this is really what I want to get across in this video. What seems to actually be going on here is not that there is this standardized vitamin and mineral amount that you need, that everybody needs as a human to be healthy, okay? Like whether you're eating a low-carb diet, a keto diet, whether you're an athlete or whatever, you all need to hit this minimum amount set by the government of nutrients. That is not actually what's going on. I can assure you that. And there's no evidence that that's the case either, okay? Now, what seems to be going on is, so we know if you read a textbook on on micronutrients, what you'll find is vitamins like, for example, vitamin B1, thiamine, and most of the B vitamins, their main mechanism, the main reason why, their main purpose is they're involved in the mechanisms of metabolizing macronutrients. So, for example, when you eat rice, okay, or when you eat rice, when you eat rice needs, like the starch from rice, requires a certain amount of vitamin B1, thiamine, in order to metabolize the starch and turn it into energy. One of the main symptoms of vitamin B1 deficiency is a lack of overall energy, and it's feelings of fatigue and malaise, okay? And so what happened in those sailors when they would develop this widespread disease of B1 deficiency, of beriberi, they all felt fatigue, malaise, they had no energy, and then their heart stopped working because it couldn't provide enough energy to pump it anymore. And so they had all these symptoms of a energy deficit or a glucose metabolism. They had lots and lots of macronutrition, the white rice, the starch, but they didn't have enough of the B vitamins to turn that macronutrition into energy. And so you can kind of conceptualize this, although this is not a fact and not claiming it is, but you can conceptualize this as when you eat sugar or when you eat starch or when you eat carbohydrates, for example, as a macronutrient, your body burns B vitamins and vitamin C and other nutrients, other micronutrients, in order to metabolize those foods and turn them into energy. So if you eat a lot of refined foods, your body will burn through the vitamins and minerals that you consume in your diet to metabolize it and turn into energy, and it will also burn the stores. Your body stores a certain amount of all nutrients inside of it, especially in the liver. And so what I'm getting at here is, and the fact is, we have seen this for sure. People who eat nothing but meat on these carnivore diets, they don't develop vitamin B1 deficiency. They don't develop vitamin C deficiency. And there is this guy, Elliot Overton, EO Nutrition or whatever, who's talking about thiamine supplementation, even if you're on a carnivore diet, because years and years of eating sugar and refined foods seems to have depleted people of these of vitamin B1 so much that when they go on low carb diets, they feel better because they're not using up vitamin B1 anymore. So essential nutrition is context dependent upon the diet in which you're eating, okay? If you're eating a lot of carbohydrates, whether they're from whole foods or refined foods, you need to also consume those micronutrients that are being burned to metabolize those carbs for energy, okay? Hypothetically, that's the concept we're getting across. If you're eating a low-carb diet, right, or a ketogenic diet or a carnivore diet or whatever, your body needs the micronutrients that metabolize protein and amino acids and turn them into neurotransmitters and stuff, as well as fats and lipids and things, okay? So that's the main thing, is you don't need all these vitamins and minerals because the government said you need to hit the RDIs. You need these vitamins and minerals to metabolize whatever diet specifically you as an individual are following. Okay? So there's no RDIs. There's no reason to give a shit about the RDIs at all. There really isn't. Unless you want to just kill yourself and suffer and stress and obsess over all these micronutrients that have no real reason to hit them, no real evidence, no research behind it, and no benefit likely. Especially if you're one of these people, I got to get it all from Whole Foods. Food is medicine. Got to get all my nutrition from Whole Foods. Good luck doing that shit. There's a reason why it's so fucking hard. We have grocery stores now, and it's hard to get all of our recommended daily intake of nutrients from food. Imagine, as a hunter-gatherer, do you really think that humans over their evolution, they ate the wide variety of different foods that they would need to hit these RDIs, these recommended daily intakes of nutrients, that were only formulated in the last 100 years anyway? And most government officials, I guarantee you, they're not trying to hit all these things. And then you have to spend $25, $30 a day to get these things now. Anyway, we never had deficiency diseases or any diseases associated with micronutrient needs until we started refining our foods. And now we have all sorts of problems. So one more book recommendation that you're probably not going to read, unfortunately, is Nourishing Diets by Sally Fallon. It is a layman's or laywoman's, it's an average person's review or overview of the research done by Dr. Weston Price, who found populations of humans who are eating their natural diet from the land had no deficiency diseases or anything like that. And if they did, they had specific foods they could use to remedy it. But then when they switched over to the refined foods, all future generations had diseases that doctors think now are genetic, or they're really from your diet. Literally didn't have diseases till we were refining a food. So, in this regard, there's still diseases, but not deficiency diseases and whatnot. So, where's it going with this? Yes. So, in conclusion, okay, so for me, my thing is if you're eating a whole foods diet and you're also eating animal foods, okay, as well, whether you're eating mostly plant-based, but you're eating a good amount of meat, I think you're probably going to be fine. If you're eating a carnivore diet, maybe you can add a little bit of fruit, because a little bit of fruit would at least give you the potassium and vitamin B1 and vitamin C. But I mean, really, most people do not find that they have a deficiency syndrome as long as they're eating whole foods that include some meat, okay? Because your body does need certain things to survive, right? I'm not telling you if you just eat nothing but brown rice, you'll be freaking healthy and fine. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying you don't need to obsess over micronutrition. You definitely don't need to take a multivitamin or anything like that. There's no benefit to that at all. Now, if your doctor tells you you have a deficiency disease, okay, like it's really common, like vitamin D, and you have the symptoms associated with it, like depression and anxiety and shit like that, and then also bone mineral density, osteoporosis and stuff, then yeah, you should probably take a vitamin D supplement, probably take calcium, because if you don't, you're probably going to fucking die, and your bones are going to fall apart. And do some strength training while you're at it. If you're diagnosed with B deficiency, a B vitamin deficiency, or any of that, right? Or if you have some symptoms that you think might be caused by a deficiency, supplement with that for a while and through trial and error see if that actually happened. But you need to avoid this hypochondria and orthorexia, which is basically just health anxiety and an unhealthy obsession with food or with health that I fell into for a long time, where I thought the cause of my health problems was that I was not getting all the minimum intake of vitamins and minerals. Because all that's going to happen is you're going to spend a bunch of money, probably not really find much improvements, and meanwhile, you could just eat mostly meat and then add whatever foods you want on top of it and be perfectly fine. At least that's what I believe is the best approach. But, yeah, so you'll see all these freaking people, like, obsessing over micronutrition and then criticizing certain extreme diets and saying, oh, it's deficient in nutrients. It's like the majority of Americans, the majority of just modern society in general, okay, what does their diet look like? They wake up in the morning, they might eat like 2 eggs with some toast and some cereal, right? Drink some like freaking orange juice, which is fortified with vitamin C, or some like skim milk, and they start their day. They might get some Starbucks with a bunch of sugar and vegetable oil, kind of like creamer and high fructose corn syrup in it. Then for lunch they might have a hamburger with French fries and soda. And then for dinner, they might be lucky enough to have shake and bake pork chops or something with like flour, baked in flour, and a little bit of broccoli and some white pasta with it or something. Like, the majority of the nutrients people are getting are from animal foods anyway, which is hilarious. These days, people looking down on animal foods. And refined carbs that are fortified, okay? Most people's micronutrient needs are being met by the combination of fortified foods, refined carbs, okay, and animal foods. And to me, I'm like, why don't you just eat animal foods first and then consume either whole, you could do whole grains if you'd like, or potatoes or fruit on top of that, right? So yeah, it's just amazing to me how complicated we make health just because we don't understand the simple basics about where shit came from. And it's reductionism for the purpose of profit. Reductionism, where you take a highly complicated and dynamic process, right? Because it's interconnected. Food is interconnected with the species and the organism eating that food. And the pattern of your food macronutrient, like your overall dietary pattern, all combined with your genetics and how you live and all this stuff, all dictates your nutrient needs. And then we have these large corporations and authorities who think that they can just do one giant sweeping micronutrient recommended intake need. Literally no one cares about anyway. And if they tried to hit these micronutrient needs, they would not. They would have the hardest fucking time ever trying to hit their recommended daily intake. It's insane. Meanwhile, you have all these extreme diets where people follow it and they feel better than they've ever felt in their life. Like, for example, look, I don't advocate this, like the paleo diet, but it's funny. People can literally just eat 2 pounds of meat a day, lean meat he recommends, some salad greens or whatever, and some fruit, and they literally have no deficiencies, right? Or you could follow a really complicated approach that includes whole grains and all this, and snacks and shit, like this one. And I love Mark Hyman, by the way, but he does have a lot of just unfounded pseudoscientific stuff and overcomplicates things, I think. Where basically he has all these vitamin recommendations and stuff, which can work. He has a whole test on whether you're dopamine deficient or serotonin deficient, which is a stupid concept, by the way, but you get the picture, though. It can help you figure out where your mood problems are. Or you'd be like me and just be like, yeah, I recognize now that most health problems have a simple cause, and most people just need to eat a couple pounds of meat a day, some fruit or tubers if they'd like, grains if they can tolerate it, only whole grains. Stay the fuck away from refined foods of all kind, refined sugar and stuff. And if you're diagnosed by a doctor as deficient in a disease, deficient in a micronutrient, by all means supplement. And I think that people who are diagnosed with low vitamin D or low vitamin or whatever, they have like an actual vitamin deficiency that's diagnosed by a doctor, and they refuse to take a isolated vitamin supplement, I think that that's foolish. If you have been clinically diagnosed with a deficiency in a nutrient by a doctor, by a blood test, you should take the isolated pharmaceutical supplemental form. Because if you do not, and you think, I'm just going to get this vitamin D from mushrooms or even from regular food, it's not going to be powerful enough to have a substantial effect in the short term. Vitamin deficiency, if you have one, is like night or day. You can literally die from a deficiency in a B vitamin or something. And when you supplement with a vitamin or a mineral you're deficient in, it can literally change your fucking life. So, yeah. If you're deficient, supplement. If you're not, don't take multivitamins and crap. Because also these things need to be taken in balance and in harmony. And your body can actually metabolize these things and get rid of these things and balance these things out through food a lot better. There's mechanisms, rate-limiting enzymes and digestive processes that prevent you from overdosing on vitamins and minerals and balancing them through when you eat them through food. But when you supplement with them, you can have all sorts of problems. And one of the most common causes of mineral or vitamin imbalances or vitamin overdoses is just from supplementing them. You don't get a vitamin overdose from eating a shit ton of bananas. Like people think potassium overdose, you can do it from 30 bananas a day. You have these fruitarian people who do that shit and they don't die of potassium overdose, which is a lethal thing, by the way. Conversely, you don't really see iron overload in carnivore people. In fact, there's a lot of people who actually had genetic hemochromatosis and they reverse it eating an all-meat diet, which is weird. Or they reverse it, but they didn't have to get their yearly blood drawn anymore or whatever. So, blood donation. So, yeah, it's highly nuanced, everyone. And it's so complicated and nuanced, it's actually simple. The only reason why y'all are confused and anxious about health is because of government authorities and supplement companies and pharmaceutical companies and food companies. They want for you to think it's super complicated, so you don't know what the fuck to do. So you just buy all these supplements and buy all this shit, and your health actually declines as a result. And you maximize all the minutia that gives these companies profits and leaves you confused and reliant upon all these professionals. And meanwhile, you completely neglect the basic fundamentals. Like I preach, get 2 pounds of meat a day or whatever, and then just go from there. Remove food intolerances and stuff. No, it's more complicated than that, everyone. I'm going to die if I don't get my multivitamin in. Whatever.